Hey, it's Friday. I'm bringing in Troop's little quarantine from home show. And it's not just called the Friday show. It's called Fridays with Jarod. And so there's
It
Jarod.
is
How are you,
indeed.
sir?
Hello, I'm good. How are you, Henry?
I'm good. Good morning, David.
Good morning.
It's a special
Coach,
day on
very
Friday.
reserved this morning, Coach.
I know.
Saving my energy.
See, smart. He knows. Got to get ready for 9 by
And I'm old. I got to be smart about it. It's called budgeting your energy.
Can I just take a minute to talk about playing pickup basketball with David Thorpe? I knew him for a long time and never did it. And then there was we're in some gym in Connecticut, and there's a thing. And those of us who were randomly assigned to David's team thought, well, we can't possibly lose because we have the best coach by far. He calls us in. And I'm like, here it goes. We're about to get the pearls. We're going to get the wisdom. And David, do you remember what you said?
I have no clue, but I'm very worried about where this is going.
Literally, it's something very close to, guys, like, I can't shoot because my shoulder's fucked up and I can't move because my hip's fucked up, and so you're going to have to do everything.
That sounds like me. I was throwing too many long toss with my, at that point, 7 or 8-year-old son, and I just had thrown my shoulder right out. I couldn't do a thing.
And the rest of us are like, what? It's like, how are you? No, but how are we going to win? And
I set good screens. I passed the ball and handled it fine.
That night also featured, I'm sorry, we're off track here, but for the record, that night also featured the greatest line I've ever heard on a basketball court, which was Royce Webb, tremendously skilled player with an unusual kind of, no one plays quite like Royce. There's a lot of weird things with spin on the ball. At one point, I kid you not, I'm running down the break. Royce has like a guarded layup, and he puts the ball absolutely 100% straight up toward the very corner of the backboard, and it touches like this far off the bottom of the backboard, but it has so much spin on it that it goes like a laser. It touches the board and it takes a hard 90-degree left turn into the bucket. And I've never seen anything like it. And I turn to Chris Ramsey and I say, did you see the English on that ball? And Chris says, that wasn't English. That was Scottish.
So Dr. Jack Ramsey's son, that is some funny shit. I didn't know that. That's funny.
Dr. Jack, man, the pearls of wisdom. Him and Hubie, like the things that they just talk about when it relates to basketball, you're just like, I could sit there for hours and listen to those guys.
Man, that's funny.
Okay. We got clocks, we got obligations, we got things to settle.
I don't see the clock.
It's coming. I know, it's coming.
Oh, it's coming.
You didn't forget. Yeah,
there it is. There it is.
In our face. In your face.
Right. We call it 9 by 90. We're going to each take a turn, 90 seconds. Rod's up first, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, so Kevin Durant is an interesting figure for many ways. Obviously, a preternaturally talented basketball player, 1, 2, 3 best players in the world. He had an interesting article, a sit down with Mark Spears of The Undefeated, and he talked about his injuries and what's going on, with him in the past. And this is what I found very interesting. He said, I didn't feel rushed at all. And this is about his Achilles injury. It was a great escape. It was a great space to be in. I was putting pressure on myself in previous injuries, wanting to hurry up and come back. I saw my teammates having fun and wanted to be out there. This time I felt like I was more patient throughout the process mentally and not rushing myself. Not get too excited when my team plays well or I have a good rehab day. I'm taking things second by second. I'm not trying to look out for what's best in the long term. And it's this idea of him recognizing his basketball mortality, right? And again, it's Mark Spears in The Undefeated. You guys should check it out. This idea that in the past, and remember famously last year, it was a big thing with, was he being pressured by not just the media in the Bay Area, but the team through the media, right? To get him to come back and play in the finals. And of course he said no, his agent said no, everybody's like, no. But he's here in a way admitting like, I felt pressure to come back. And that's the thing that athletes always face, right? We're on the line. I want to be out there with my teammates. I want to do this thing, but he is going to be now 32 when next season starts. If he wants to see the rest of his career and his legacy, he's got to start thinking about, okay, what's best in it for me in that way. Oh yeah, I didn't see the rest of my time. My bad.
Now it's just gone. No one can use
it. So I first heard about the Tulsa Massacre when The Watchmen came on. The first show for HBO is The Watchmen, and I've not yet watched it. I think my wife and I may try to catch the first episode this weekend. But I did not know that was not a fictional, that it was a true story. I thought it was fictional. Oh. And I went to a really good high school. I didn't study it in college, but I studied history a lot in high school. It was never mentioned once. I don't know how that's possible. And even worse than that, many years ago, and Henry knows this, I choose a subject per year and spend a good amount of time during that year studying something in that subject. And my very first subject I ever chose was African American history. And I read lots of things and I just got a glimpse at how much more I needed to learn. I never once came across any reference of it, at least not to my memory. And I don't know how it's possible, but I do know that I'm going to learn a lot more about it. And I think it's when you hear people saying things may be changing in America today because of what's happening, those of us that are in positions where we get a chance to talk to a lot of people, and we need to get educated ourselves. And that's something that we can do, is we can learn a lot more about these things that history has ignored because white people didn't want to write about it and have us learn about it. And that needs to change. So I know for me personally, it's going to change. I'm going to know a lot more about this subject and be able to talk at least mildly eloquently about it going forward. And I'm looking forward to watching The Watchmen.
And I will just echo, Coach, that you're going to really – enjoy is the wrong word. You're going to really be so educated once you dive into more about The Watchmen and the Tulsa Massacre.
Yeah.
And, again, seeing what happens when Black people then can, with the circumstances, rise and get to a certain level, and how people feel threatened by that and decide, well, we got to get rid of this. So let's just blow it up and bomb them and kill them all. And that's essentially what happened.
Right. Henry?
Okay. The great Christy Oshman will be on this show on Monday. She published a story last night that's important to us. I'm going to do a little reading. This weekend in Florida, there's going to be 4,000 Spartans at a Spartan race. Participants are encouraged to bring friends and family to the race. Social distancing will be required, and races will start in waves with 24 racers starting every 5 minutes. Water obstacles will be removed, and participants and volunteers will be screened for COVID-19 symptoms and subjected to a touch-free temperature check. The prospect of assembling thousands of people for a recreational sporting event worries public health experts. Right now is not the time for these large gatherings, said Sarah Madad, a special pathogen specialist at New York City Health and Hospitals. Communities may be opening up again, she says, but it's important to understand that the risks of COVID-19 remain. Nothing has changed. The virus hasn't changed. Our arsenal of treatments haven't changed. Our biggest weapon right now is our behavior. According to the COVID-19 Event Risk Assessment Planning Tool created at Georgia Tech, we should check that out, there's a greater than 96% chance that there will be someone with COVID-19 at an event with 4,000 people. The Spartan race is taking place just after Florida set a new single-day record for coronavirus cases since reopening, 1,495 new cases on June 5th. Even with precautions like hand sanitizing, staggered starts, and masks for race officials, the size of an event like this is just too risky, said Zachary Binney, PhD, an epidemiologist at Emory University. Oh, you're doing hand sanitizing and social distancing? Whoopee, you're still unnecessarily getting several thousand people together, he says. That's all my time.
Henry, something else is happening in Florida that might be a problem.
We'll be discussing this. Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
To be continued.
So the Innocence Project and this just announced that in New York City, or in New York, this is great. It's a historic victory at the New York legislature repealed 50-A. Those of you that don't know what that is, that was a law that allowed law enforcement to shield police misconduct records from the public. And this is quite historic in so many ways, because there's all this talk around the country about holding our police accountable, police reform, police revolution, in many ways, police abolition, right? Destroying the current structure in the way that it's set up. And I can't explain how important it is to have public records available of police misconduct of any group that is responsible to protect and serve its citizens. That is a grouping that must be held to the highest possible standards, right? Because you literally have, as it stands right now, the power of life and death at your fingertip, right? Which we see literally happen day by day. So in order to have these officers now accounted, that's a step to getting the police unions, right, and their power more democratic across the entire police force, right? So that everyone has an interest in what's going on and what can be said. And when we talk about defunding the police, this is a step in that direction. Again, we're not saying police don't exist. What we're saying is holding them to a standard that is warranted for the position in which they hold. And I cede my remaining 3 seconds.
I'll take those 3 seconds. We try to diet. It doesn't mean we don't eat ever. We're allowed to change some of those things without necessarily going to zero. All right, so Spurs, I think second-year player Lonnie Walker basically tweeted out, I think he also discussed on video that he got a haircut. And he talked about how his haircut was a way to hide a pretty terrible sexual abuse issue that he went through as a young person. And the reason I want to talk about it quickly this morning is humans are so much more complex. We all have a story and a backstory. And we're so quick, I think as a species, we're so quick to judge, knowing full well that we don't really know the story. And it's a reminder to all of us, obviously this is a horrible situation. And I'm a huge fan now of Lonnie Walker. I wasn't necessarily before, but courage and congratulations for him to tackle this the way he's doing it and to be open about it, which is very hard to do. But it's a reminder to all of us that we need to hold that judgment back and recognize there's so much more going on almost always. It goes back to my favorite word, decency. We should be able to extend that to people, but before we know them, and just assume they're dealing with some stuff when they do something you don't really like. Not that Lonnie did. He's fine. But it just reminded me that all these guys have stories. Every woman has a story. We all have it. We need to be more decent about it. And patient.
At first glance, see the humanity in everybody. That's the first basic thing.
I'm going to talk about NASCAR, which is really outside my comfort zone. But all right, so this NASCAR's shifting sides on the Confederate flag, bubble walls, etc. Actually, LeBron retweeted this one saying, "Great job, blah 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 blah." It strikes me as like, this is a dilemma that a lot of people are going to face, right? How do you feel about your new friends? This one, my special flag, and then look at what NASCAR said.
We actually had to Google who you were. Yeah.
The way the internet works, we know this, right? There will be plenty of people who are coming aboard the notion of civil rights now, late to the party in 2020, right? Do you welcome them? Do you not? Like, you could hunt down everybody's social media accounts or something they said in college, and like, I don't know what the right answer is there. But I thought about Chad Ford had this story, taught me about it. Task cohesion versus identity cohesion. So long story short, identity cohesion is people. These are your people. Like, these are your people who you're, trusting with everything. Task cohesion are the friends you need to get something done. Like, there's the story of a ditch that needs to be dug to bring water to the village. Like, you need everybody on board to dig the ditch, right? You don't need them to be perfect in their souls. You need their help, right? So I think that we might need to accept help from. Am I out of time? Did I do it already?
No, you're good. Quickly.
But yeah, I think there's going to be two different groups. Task cohesion. You might want some NASCAR friends, is what I'm saying.
I will say, NASCAR, what if it was Kevin Harvick or Jimmy Johnson or one of their more well-known people who said that, who have millions of fans? Would it be as easy to make that statement? Again, I'm not just asking.
They drew the line now, though, right?
they sure did. They sure did.
Yeah.
Okay. So LeBron James, he is starting a voting rights campaign for people to understand and know what their rights are, and it's spurred on by what was happening in Georgia. People waiting online 3, 4, 5 hours to vote, mail-in ballots. You're having to be paid. You're having to pay postage, which you shouldn't have to pay postage on a election ballot. And people are wondering, is that a form of fraud or voting poll tax? And then I saw an interesting headline that juxtaposed with that, with LeBron from Fox News saying he's silent on Hong Kong, but okay to talk about what's going on in the U.S. And I bring that up because I think it's a tightrope that Black athletes have to walk, or Black successful people, Black wealthy people, right? It's this idea of, in order for you to achieve and gain your millions, there is a certain amount of acquiescing and things you have to do to make the mainstream feel happy for you to get that money. That's just how it works. But when you get that money, right, it's this, okay, now let me employ all of these Black people and people of color and diverse and whatever to make actual change. And it's a very challenging thing to deal with and go back and forth. Look, let's be frank about it. LeBron sells millions of shoes in China, right? That's just a real thing. That is part of his wealth. So for him to come out and say one thing there is going to affect the money, which he's able to take and do all these wonderful things he does here in the United States. So is it robbing Peter to pay Paul? Probably, but that's the dilemma he's in.
Okay, so yesterday, I think Donald Trump had some kind of meeting with police officers. I don't really pay much attention. It's hard to do that. But I did pay attention to this quote. In talking about the police and everything, he said, we have so many different elements of strength in this country. We have such potential in this country. We have the greatest potential. But we get off subject and we start thinking about things that don't matter or don't matter much. He went on the next sentence to say, this matter is important, talking about what's happening in America today. But that's gone. He delivered what he needed to deliver to his people, basically saying all of these things don't really matter. And so here's the thing, and I'll say this quickly in 45 seconds. I'm a competitive motherfucker. I'm a coach, right? I've coached teams where we've seen the other team willing to go way beyond the rules, including throwing elbows to our heads, everything else. I did not tell my players, hey, just accept it. I said, get after those motherfuckers. This is a fucking fight. We'll fight. Like right now, we are in a fight, right? Our president is telling us we're fighting. And if we believe in what we're talking about, we've got to be prepared to fight too. I'm not asking for violence. I tell you what, though, we've got to stand up every chance we can and do what we need to do, because the other side, this is war to them. So I say, suit up. I'm done.
Woo, I'm fired up, ready to go.
There you go, Thorpe Kerr 2020. Okay, Carmelo Anthony was on Ernie Johnson's quarantine show and said, as far as physical standpoint,
I'm still up in the air a little bit because I really don't, we don't have all the details. We don't know a lot of information. So until we have that, it's kind of hard to just, commit to it 100%.
Thank you, Judy. It worked. You can stop. He also said that he thinks they're super fit. The Blazers are locked in. He's like, 100% the basketball part ready to go. The team's 100% healthy, and he thinks that they have like a special commitment. They're working so hard, which makes me think about David Thorpe's definition of leadership, which is breathing spirit into people, right? So does he feel, given everything happening on planet Earth, and they covered a lot of topics from coronavirus to Black Lives Matter, has Adam Silver inspired Carmelo Anthony to put aside everything else, his concerns about the health, what he could be doing with his time otherwise to get him into that bubble? Not quite there yet, right? And the players actually haven't voted to approve the current plan. There isn't a finalized plan. The player reps have approved moving forward, right? It seems like there's still a little work to take. It matters a lot that's coming from Carmelo because he's a very plugged in, respected player. He's talking to LeBron, right? This is a work to do. There's work to do here. The NBA has not yet solved how to get the players it needs in the bubble.
Clearly.
I think you're actually right on, Henry. And there's some other stuff around this I wanted to talk about. And I think it's clear that distinction you made is perfect. It's the player reps, right? The reps from each team that have said, okay, move forward. The rest of the body of the union, the 400 and however many remaining players, they haven't all said, yeah, we're good on this. As we're hearing about these calls that are taking place between 40 and 50 NBA players talking about their concerns. One among the concerns, of course, is, so wait, I can't be with my family for 2 months or 3 months? I don't like that rule. How are we so sure about this testing and safety? The other part about the testing is, and we talked about this in a larger context, we remember 9/11. After that happened, all the freedoms we gave up that the government told us we had to because they had to protect us. Okay, fine. We all did that because that's what we had to do. There is a pending or upcoming labor negotiation happening. What things are the owners going to try to put on the table, and what are the union and the players reps going to have to figure out? No, don't put this here because we're not doing that. I.e., performance-enhancing drug testing, i.e., marijuana testing, right? All of these things, are those happening while they're in the bubble that weren't happening before? Well, is that something you're now going to give up in the next bargaining agreement? There are a lot of things that are happening here that we need to be aware of. And of course, as it relates to us as media people, right, this idea of, and there we go, Shams just said it, right? Like, so they're going to conduct performance-enhancing drug testing during the resume season, but tests for recreational drugs will remain suspended. So, okay, if you want to smoke your marijuana, you're good to go, right? Like, but again, what are you going to keep on the table when you bring up the collective bargaining agreement in another, 12 to 18 months, something like that, whenever it's up? I'm concerned about that if I were a player, and I'm sure they are, and this is what these conversations are coming from. The other big thing is a few of the players, and Matt Barnes is one of these retired guys who's still plugged in and talks to a lot of the guys in the league. They're concerned about what's going on in America. And they're like, should we even continue this season? Should we take this as an opportunity to stand and be like, nope, we're not playing, and here's why, until we actually address these situations? I've said this before, and I think the NBA of all the leagues is better and the best among what they allow their players to do. But hey, there's still improvements that they can do as well, right? And there are still areas in which they can make things better for all people. So I think there's some work to be done here, and this can be an opportunity for the players to really stand up and say something.
I mean, players aren't stupid, right? This is a partnership with a ragtag collection of morally shoddy billionaires, right? Like,
namely
on this issue.
who? Namely who, Henry?
No, well, honestly, I don't even know. Like, decades of DeVos family. This is their host family.
Yes.
So Betsy DeVos's family, which owns the Orlando Magic, funded these like Liberate Michigan movements and such. And, it's, well, don't get me started. I could get sued, but Google all around that. Like Google all around that. This is like, if this is the moment that we are sort of opening this can of worms, you can't very well launch your business partnership with the DeVos family, right?
Agreed.
Well, and then look at the context as we spoke a little bit about it, and I put it on our document. My local Bay News 9 website, which I normally go every morning just to check the storm for tonight, so we can go to the beach later or not. The whole thing is adults age 25 to 34 have seen the biggest spike in the number of coronavirus cases since Florida's reopen push began last month. Pretty much the typical age of almost every player playing in the NBA, at 25 to 34 or older, right? There's a few that are younger, obviously. So by September 1, are we going to have 200,000 Americans dead? Right when the playoffs are really kicking into, overdrive with the Final 8. So in that context, having no idea what's going to happen with the riots and the protests, I should say, not the riots, the protests that are going on, all these things happening, people dying, it's going to get worse as I see it, because everyone's acting as if there's no virus to worry about anymore. So when they project 200,000 deaths, I think by September 1, that could easily be changed to 220 or 240. And then in October 1, it could be at 250 when the NBA finals are going on, and they need to be thinking about that. So we all would love the NBA to return, as we've said from the beginning, but the context right now is bad. Like and none of them are calling. This is to something, Henry, too, that you've kind of alluded to many times. I've been saying this forever too. How are NBA teams and owners not screaming, Florida, everyone needs to wear a mask, because we're not going to be able to play games in that state if you guys are one of the 5 worst states to live in America. Hell, we could have gone to New York for the way things are going right now. They'd be safer in MSG and Barclays Center based on how things are going right now. But no one's saying a word. Everyone's acting as if it'll disappear magically. And I think the NBA season's really still at risk.
For sure. So when we're doing an 9x90, if someone says something like, "Ooh, we should revisit that," like I take a little note that you see me write down, because there's 90 seconds is not enough time. I literally made a little note about every one of our points, like all of them. But one of them was just because I know that you'll care about this and it's relevant. That Christy Oshman story has a basketball section. Even if it's outdoors, basketball is high risk. Even if it's outdoors, basketball is high risk, because you're throwing a ball back and forth and breathing hard in close proximity to one another, Benny says. It's almost impossible to play a normal game without getting close enough to breathe on other players. I wouldn't recommend recreational league basketball right now, Benny says. If you really must play, do it one-on-one with a member of your household. Or if you can't do that, you could consider blending with another household that would give you enough players. But really, you need to ask yourself if this is really necessary, he says.
I mean, it's quite evident, right? And the other thing, too, about this bubble. So I know that, and this goes back to my point about the collective bargaining agreement, the players are not going to be wearing GPS monitor trackers, right? Because that's like something out of archaic, whatever. The players are already resistant to wearing any kind of tracking stuff in a non-pandemic situation when it relates to teams wanting to see what they're doing and all that sort of thing. So how are we enforcing who is actually coming in and out of this thing? Are you literally like, here's your credential with your thing and you're doing a retina scan? Like, who is going in and out of here? And again, how are you maintaining if someone goes somewhere, they said they have to come back, it's a minimum of a 10-day quarantine. Oh, okay. So are you now going to test everyone they come in contact with going forward as well? And like, what's your decision tree, right? It's everything is a tree, right? How does this affect everyone else? And I just don't, again, I don't know that it's thought out. And look, the money, I know why they have to do it. So many people depend on these dollars. Get it. But, there's too many unknowns and too many variables.
There's not a way. The virus isn't decent, right?
Right.
The virus isn't like, oh, we'll make sure everybody's taken care of, right? Like the virus is like, no, you bring an old person here, we might kill that person.
Right.
That's what the virus is saying. It's not what the bosses are saying. It's not what the rules are saying. That's what the virus is saying. So what do we do with a threat like that, right? Like
I've not been rebounding in our gym with pro guys and my son. I've been kicking the ball back or letting them kick the ball back to each other. But the other day I did. I knew what I was doing. I was conscious. I used my left hand. It just came right to me, would have hit me. I threw it back to one of our players. I then left the gym, walked to my car, did 20 seconds of hand sanitizer, and went back inside. I don't want to get sick. I want to be able to hug my parents again before they die. I don't want to have them hug them in their coffin.
This was one of the things I wrote down. I love this topic. I mean, it's so relevant to what Jarod was talking about and the thing that we're talking about right now. So superhumanization. Have we talked about this before? This word? So it's an academic field of study. And kind of a friend of the show is one of the professors who's led this. But there's this kind of tradition of black bodies in American history where we pretend they're not delicate, right? Everyone participates in this. Like there's a notion, let's say if a white person plays well in a basketball game, then a black person might say, yeah, but like there were no black people there. Of course, like there's this notion that like black bodies are superhuman bodies, right? And the problem with this is that we have a hard time seeing black bodies as delicate or vulnerable, right? I think we are seeing a little of this in basketball fans who are basically saying like, you can put those guys on the court, right? You can have them play basketball. They'll probably be fine. Do you know how tough they are? Right? Like we all joked about it with Marcus Smart. You think the coronavirus thing Marcus Smart down? Do you know how goddamn tough Marcus Smart is? Right? Like if you look at the tradition, like, okay, you have to ask that same person, like, will you go in the bubble? Will you let your kids in the bubble? Right? It's the golden rule. And so to me, like this notion that like these are particularly invulnerable people, like careful. Like superhumanization is often generous, is often promoted by black people, but it's racist as fuck, right? And very real right now. Like we'll put these people at risk, and but not those people. Like no. Like if you're not going in the bubble, don't tell me it's safe for someone else in the bubble.
Well, Henry, what you're talking about, that stretches all the way back to, see this hat that I'm wearing, 1619,
I do see
right?
that hat you're wearing. Yes, yes.
The day the first slave ship touched the shores of this country. It is the idea that black people were designed and bred because they're so physically superior to do these things, to sow the fields and do all this physical work. And that is what was adopted by these slave traders and slave owners and slave masters, that again, to your point, permeates now through everything we say when we talk about guys like LeBron. Oh, he's superhuman. And it's like, okay, he's 6'9", 280. I mean, he's quite physically gifted, but he also hurts too, right? Like, yeah. But it's a disconnect that I don't think people make, even when they say things like that.
And we don't like athletes acting like they're vulnerable. We're getting better at it. But like, this is the importance of the Lonnie Walker thing that Dave, Lonnie Walker is basically saying like, hey, like, I'm hurt. I've been hurt badly. Like, God knows how many nights Lonnie Walker has cried, or how many bad games he's had as a Spur when sports radio was like, he needs to buck up, right? It's like, no, you don't know what the hell you're talking about, right? But one thing that's very helpful is when Lonnie Walker tells us this, right? And then it's easier to ascertain the full humanity of athletes who are, of course, as you've pointed out many times, Rod, they're humans.
They are human beings.
Yeah.
And their family is too, right? Some of these guys aren't just, in fact, I would argue all of them aren't just worried about their own bodies.
Yeah.
They are worried about their wives and kids. And I mean, if anyone saw Michael Jordan heaving and weeping regarding his first championship after his dad died. I don't believe, it's just my theory, I don't think that was contrived. I don't think he knew. There was no one in the room at first. I think he was genuinely wrecked because he loved his dad. And if you read about his father, that's understandable why he loved him. Well, these players like their dads and moms and grandmas and grandpas, whatever, and they don't want to get anybody sick. And we know for a fact that they can actually get them sick. So we're still putting everyone at real risk without real science to protect people.
They're going to have to answer those questions. They just are. Like,
the players are going to demand it, aren't they?
Yeah. And I suspect that's why they haven't answered these questions for media, right? Is because they have to have, by the time they have final answers, they need to be answers that Carmelo signed off on. And they're not there yet, right?
It's a really great point. They've got to take care of those people first.
Yeah.
Well, and it's true. And I can say this, people that I'm reaching out to on both sides, league side and the Players Association side, crickets. And my response back. And generally when I get crickets, it's because they don't have an answer for me, right? So and fine, but they have no answers.
This is the middle manager crisis, right? Like when you're the middle manager, they ask you, what's our stance on X? Like the answer is, it's not up to you.
Right.
You don't know. Like you have to go find out the answer. Until you find out the answer, you can't say anything. So you end up, this is why middle manager is talking, blah, 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 We're calling middle managers is what we're doing, right?
Right.
I think we're going to see too players not just sticking up for each other, but for sticking up for the collective. I can see Tim Duncan worried about Pop. That's like a dad to him, right? Alvin Gentry.
Gentry.
He's
how old's Coach Casey?
Gentry, I think is high 60, 68 maybe.
And Coach
he
Casey,
looks 45, but
is Casey also in his 60s? I feel close.
I've seen these.
Dwayne Casey.
Yeah, and well, he's not in the bubble, but
that's true.
Strategic loss. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, but there are others that are assistants, and they're beloved people, and I think the players are to be a basketball player in the NBA means almost always you understand the concept of we over me, because it is a we sport, and so it's kind of baked into your DNA at some point that you think about us and not just yourself. And that means they're not just thinking about themselves and their family, their immediate family, they're thinking about the collective. And so I think, Henry, you're exactly right. I think the league knows, holy fuck, we got to make sure all of these people get all these answers to their satisfaction before we release ultimately what this whole A to Z process is.
And it's tough because like the emotions of the power brokers involved would drive every deal, and no one's speaking up for science, right? Like nobody, like, on this show, Ari Caroline very clearly, like, no, like people over 65 need to not be in there. Devin's telling us that Dwayne Casey is 65. That's just the virus talking, right? But we've already seen, a general manager, an agent, a coach, prominent journalists, everybody thinking Adam Silver was out of his mind. A giant misstep for mentioning in passing that older coaches might not be allowed in. That makes it a tough environment to be scientific about this, right?
And I do wonder, because as you know, Henry, and we all know, Adam, well, I think he's a very good commissioner. I think, it's one of the best that we have in all the pro sports right now. He's very concerned about the PR of the league, as is his job, right? So I do wonder, like, if he's so worried about this, like, what's the calculus he makes when he makes a statement like, okay, maybe older coaches aren't involved? Like, when he says things and it's like, shit, I can't pull that back in now. It's already out here in the ethos. Like, how is he making these decisions?
I mean, I assume he's been listening to scientists. That's like, if you listen to Ari Caroline, it's exactly what you'd say, right? He has to prep them. He has to, like, look, we just can't have Greg Popovich. That might be the reality. Like, maybe they can't get insurance with Greg Popovich in there, right? Like it just might be the case. Like, this is the virus talking. We don't have to reopen, right? But if you do, you have to not have people die in there, right? So what do you do, right? Like, this is what I've been getting back to with, like, it's not decent. It's not going to be decent. Like, the new rules are not cool. Wearing a mask isn't great. How business works in the future is not great, right? But during this time, before a vaccine, right? I don't know. What can you do but listen to Ari Caroline and 100 others like him who are like, no, just don't do that, right? Don't
Well,
bring it
and let's not forget too, as we talked about, as I mentioned with Lonnie, we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know if players have a medical issue, Crohn's disease or whatever, that makes them vulnerable. We also don't know if some of them are going to say, players and coaches, including Pop, I'm out. Guys, it's not worth it for me. Keep my salary, pay me. We can argue that. We can even litigate that. But I'm not playing. In fact, I'd be shocked if that doesn't happen, at least in multiple cases, if not a dozen, where they're just like, fuck it. It's not worth it for me.
Well, they set up some things where they're not going to punish you if you don't, right? So if you say you're not going to play, you just don't get paid, and it's fine.
That is a punishment, though.
Well, I mean, yes, that is true. Yes, not getting your paycheck is a punishment.
Right. So Devin asked about having coaches in a box. I think that's exactly what Pop's going to do. I just don't think he's going to be in the bubble doing it. I think he's going to. I mean, first of all, it's not even fair to just talk about Pop. Alvin Gentry,
Lionel Hollins.
Yeah, right. My point on Pop, though, is he's been out of the box a little bit with things like this, like resting players. I could see him saying, fuck it. I'm not taking a chance. And I want Timmy or whoever, or what's the assistant coach? Becky
Hammond. Becky Hammond.
Yeah. What an amazing opportunity to say, you know what? Becky's going to handle it. She's in the best shape of all of us anyway. She's the youngest. She wants to do it because obviously that's most important. And I'm just going to stay at home in San Antonio. We're going to talk about game plan. I'm going to let her drive the bus and just point out where I think some of the roadblocks might be. It's on her. I could see him doing that. I don't think he'll go in the bubble at all and take any chances.
I'll take the other side. I bet he's 100% in there.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, more than we care to admit. I mean, these people are just like tough son of a gun kind of people, right? They're like, once more, win one for the Gipper. You know, like, I don't know. It's
well, he might talk to his doctor.
Yeah, he might.
No, he might. He still do it. I get you. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I talk to the doctor and still go.
There might. I suspect there will be some like people who stay out because of their conscience or their age or their health concerns. But I don't think Pop will be it, is my guess. We'll see. But he's just he's like former military. You know what I mean? He's just like he's all tough son of a gun, that guy.
But going back to what you were saying with Marcus Smart, the virus could give a fuck. We need the Jarod shrug. The virus, like, whatever. Like, really, Pop? You think you got a chance? Just because you flew a couple jets in the 70s?
You got to put that up, Judy. That GIF is so good.
But it's like, this is the thing, right? Like, do powerful people have the ability to ignore evidence? Like, constantly. It's all they do. Like, they barely have an ability to perceive evidence, right? Like, it wouldn't be weird if he's like, no, I think I can just out tough it. Like, that would be in keeping with every Texan. Like, I'm that's not totally true, but you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, that's what we know you mean. Right. He's a Texan with a vineyard. Let's not forget that.
Yeah. There it is.
There you go. Right. There you go.
That's the virus right there. That's COVID-19. Like, I got you, Pop. I'm not worried about you.
So I'm gonna do a little LeBron. Okay, Fox News in that thing, Jarod.
Yep.
You made me look at Fox News, Jarod. I'm not happy about that. But okay. So they're doing this thing where they're calling out LeBron for being like inconsistent on human rights. Can we say it that way?
Yep.
Okay. Like, okay. Oh, now I'm Tuesday. Look at it again.
Gonna burn my screen.
This strikes me as a little bit like what I was talking about with NASCAR, where it's like, are the leaders of NASCAR like real proven allies in America's civil rights history? Like, no, they're not. Like, can you accept their whatever they're doing now as like helpful? Like, I guess maybe what's the choice? What are you going to scold them? Like, this is the moment to be like, hey, thanks for coming around, I guess. So to me, like, yeah, LeBron, if you're a Hong Kong activist getting gassed and shot at, and you're looking at LeBron and he's not only silent, but like actively saying Daryl Morey was wrong, like, yeah, you can be pissed at LeBron. Like, he handled that one wrong. And Fox News now is doing that thing. This is how like fourth graders fight, right? Where it's like, like if you're arguing with an overweight kid, you just go to that one, right? Like LeBron has one little vulnerability. I wrote about it, for crying out loud. Like, he's not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But on this one, they detected a little opening, right? And so like, just go there and hit that point. It's like, no. I think like we're all messed up, right? We're all big bundles of imperfection.
Sure. I think for me, particularly Henry, about the Morey thing, where I have such a difficult time with it, it's not about the cause and the right. It's how come we weren't asking Daryl to expand more? Why were we asking Russ and Harden and all the players their thoughts on it? Like, they didn't say it. Like, ask Daryl why he wrote it. Like, have him answer the bell about this. The players didn't say boo-hoo about it. And again, you can argue whether they should or they shouldn't. I'm down with you on that because all of them sell shoes over there, 100%. But you were asking them to comment on what someone else said that they were like, what? I don't know why he said it. Like, that's what a lot of them were saying. I mean, we saw the video of Harden and Westbrook up there in Tokyo looking like hostages in a video. Like, well, we're sorry. I'm like, we didn't do anything. Like, Daryl said it. Why am I apologizing?
I don't know. I feel like, why was Daryl alone? These are basic rights. Voting is a word. Voting.
Agreed.
Like, freedom of speech. Like, why is Daryl unique in articulating his views there? Right. Like, everybody who isn't for voting and human rights, you have to answer, especially if you're making money from it. Like, you got to answer. That's a fair question to me.
That is fair. That is fair. I think. Look, we know the reasons why, right? I mean, China pays the NBA too much money. Mainland China.
They used to.
So, well, I was going to say, not anymore.
Well, and that's a point. Malik, well, let's get our freedom of speech now. Like,
I was going to say, right? Yeah.
Like, if we're not, like, what are we scared of now? They already took all the money. Like,
well, that's an interesting question. Are they done now? Is that CCTV deal done? Like, no more money, like, going forward, or just for the rest of this season?
Well, that's why we don't have our freedom of speech. Right. Like, obviously they're trying to patch it up, right? But to me, I'm like,
back channeling.
Like,
I watch enough Madam Secretary to know how back channeling goes. I know how back channeling goes.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking there's back channeling going on.
Oh, they're front channeling too, though. Yeah, both
That's
sides.
Not a.
Yeah, both sides. China wants
TV, David.
China wants a deal. The NBA wants a deal.
Yeah.
What I would, I mean, I'm not a negotiator for them, but I would say to China, you guys know, like, you understand what you're doing, and you're okay with it. We're not okay with it, but let's agree that we like the NBA.
I mean, listen, who doesn't love Taya Leone and what's her husband's name? The real life actor? I can't forget.
I don't know, but he's your favorite actor. I know that much. No, I know who you're talking about.
You know. It's a great. No, not David Duchovny. That's her ex-husband, the current husband. Anyway, that's a good show. But I do wonder, the NBA is in the position of power right now, right? Because, yeah, we want the money, but we have other money. You guys really want basketball from us. Okay. So we can force you to do something.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
The NBA can say to the Chinese government, we've seen your league, and so have your fans.
Yeah, right.
So here's our cards.
Yeah,
right? We don't agree with your voting rights and your other things that you're doing, but we have James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and LeBron James and Giannis, and you guys have a bunch of guys that are very, very nice guys that shoot the ball okay, don't really know how to play. They'll be good one day. I've coached very good Chinese players, very athletic, but their league is nothing close yet to the NBA. And so, all right, let's see how your people handle that.
They just need the illegal streaming to be a giant business, right? Like, right? If China's just obsessed with the NBA through unofficial channels,
there we go.
Then the official channels are going to perk right up, you know. But I don't like. Okay, super cynical view. Daryl Morey's job is not rock solid at the moment, although Tillman Fertitta has recently said that he expects him to work in a long time. Like, if Daryl's fired this summer, NBA's back in China.
Oh yeah, I think 100%. 100%.
And I think the front channeling offered that deal. They don't have to back channel that. I think they've said, hey, if we fire him, can we just agree to disagree?
Well, I mean, look at what the dude that occupies the White House said to Fertitta when he came. He's like, is that guy still working for you? Right? Yeah. Like, that was his first comment. Like, I mean, everyone knows how this game is played. And I always say it, the machine that is capitalism ain't stopping for one person. That's not how this game works.
And there was like a chuckle in that conversation where basically it's like, did somebody try civil rights on you? And like, dicks. Sorry.
I wonder if they
go
have
ahead.
offered that, and the answer was no, it's not enough. Because you would think the NBA would offer that right away.
No, see, I've thought about this. I don't think they would offer it right away because right away makes the NBA look really
Right.
weak.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Mike Pence was making speeches about how weak the NBA was on freedom of speech at that time, right? Like, if they brazenly, openly on Beijing's schedule, outside of Beijing, they've actually undermined their own ability to look like they matter. They gotta wait. Like, if they are cutting that deal, it's better for everyone if it's this summer. Like,
Back
it's
That's
channel.
discussed in the
Madam
back
Secretary.
channel. That's the back channel. The back
Madam
channel.
Secretary.
Hey, let's wait till September, October. We'll do what we need to do. I hope. I hope not.
I don't even think it's really back
hesitant.
channel. They've been openly continuing negotiations, discussions with their Chinese business partners, right? This is one of their most important things. Like, I know when I worked at ESPN, we had a monthly meeting. I'm sure that CCTV does too, right? And what's it going to take? What about this? How do you guys feel about that? Back and forth and back and forth. And at some point, you know, the Chinese position has been very clear, right?
And I wonder what role current Nets majority owner Joe Tsai plays in that process, because as obviously Alibaba is ginormous in mainland China, and he has obviously deep ties to the Chinese government. You know, what role is he playing in sort of brokering, front channeling, or back channeling?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jarod.
Write it down.
Can I okay, one other, we don't have that much more time, but it came up a little bit. You know, neither David nor I learned about the Tulsa Massacre in high school. Rule 50A, somebody wrote for some reason. You know, Donald Trump is saying basically don't call people racists, etc. I think if to anyone who's aware of these things, these are these very big, broad kind of like, yeah, that's how America has been. The history of civil rights, there's this broad kind of like, yeah, like this police chief, that, you know, union leader, etc. Like together create the man, and that's how it's been, and we just sort of dismantle this. Fine. But I think that there's a set of specific racist conspiracy, right? Some of these powerful organizations that have worked in concert, or frankly, what's his name, Senator Paul, who was saying like we can't make lynching illegal. What? Like, so to me, like, I think there might be, in addition to the giant civil rights conversation, like specific conspiracy, like racist conspirators are creating laws in America that I think we might need to like have people go away in handcuffs.
Well, Dr. Ibram X. Kendi writes about this brilliantly in his book, right? How to be an anti-racist. His point is, you're either racists and you support racist policies, or you're an anti-racist and you support anti-racist policies. There is no I'm not a racist. That middle ground does not exist, right? This idea is that that's in defense, which is what racism is rooted in, because that's such a stigma to it. And you're correct, Henry. Yes, you either support the belief that all races are equitable and you want equal treatment everywhere, or you support the opposite. It's now you may be doing the opposite subconsciously, but it happens. And I think that's the point that you're making about these sort of conspiracy, these larger racist theories and policies that work, that are done by people in the government. Yes, they clearly support racist policy. That is what they do. And it is on us, the body politic, if we truly are in a moment that we say, no, we support anti-racist policies. Now, in order for it to be anti-racist, what that means is, for it to get equitable, you have to support things that give benefits to Black and brown people. And that's where a lot of people start having discussions. Well, what do you mean they get stuff? Well, yeah, we have to get stuff if you believe in equal treatment. That's how you balance the scale.
But I also feel like yes, so the remedy, the broad societal, but also like, who emailed whom, like, to create 50A?
Yeah.
Like ending it is nice, but what happened? Like, what really happened there, right? Like, the racist power broker story is very undertold, and I think an important part of this story that like it's a big favor to powerful racists to like let all of this just become the past, right? I think like, no, what really happened there? Like I wouldn't mind looking into that a little.
I think so much of it, right, of course, and I always go here, is tied to the money, right? If we do our little digging and we look at our chief, king, apex predator capitalists, right? And we look at the things that they do and whom they talk to, follow the money. That will tell us where everything goes and why it's all where it is. The police union chiefs, right? Some of the most powerful unions in America. NYPD, number one. I'm going to bet they had some role to play in 50A, right? It seems pretty likely and logical. What was that about? What money transpired? What was the deal that was brokered to make that a thing? Because that happens, right? No one just says, you know what's a good idea? Let's make police records sealed. Like that, who even thinks about that?
Yeah.
Someone that has interest to keep it sealed.
Somebody thinks about that. Somebody did that. That really happened.
I'm happy to admit that I'm just stupid on a lot of issues. When people have argued on behalf of a constitutionalist justice, whether it's Supreme Court or just at the federal level, I've never liked it, but it's never processed the way it does now to me, which is basically if you are arguing, if you can call yourself a liberal-minded person socially, but you believe in more of a strict version of the Constitution, you are on the other side from where I am. I realize that now because all of those laws were written at a time when and for to produce what we produced. Success. They got it what they wanted. And the only way to change that is through the law.
How is Judy not joining this conversation?
I'm already the dumbest guy in the room. I don't even fourth on the list instead of third.
No, you're good. Listen, I always say
Judy bait right here, all this.
If you guys, and this system works perfectly. You want to see how a perfect system works? Just look around. This is exactly where it was designed to do. It is brilliant in its construction and execution. Even when you think that gains are being made, they're not actually gains being made, right? Like, it's all things just to keep moving the status quo forward and forward and forward. Because if gains were made, how is it that the wealth gap is continuing to
get worse,
multiply by thousands and hundreds of thousands? Well, because...
Have you seen The Matrix, Jarod?
Of course, of course.
So in the Matrix, literally they describe this, that humans rejected the perfect Eden. Like they had to redo it a few times and add pain and sin and not sin, but pain and misery because our species couldn't just embrace perfection. That's exactly what you're describing. In order to keep the status quo, you have to act as if things have gotten better. But in reality, as we see the wealth disparity, they haven't.
And it's the economics, man. I always bring it up, but it's true. If you want to see how everything's connected, look at the money. The money tells you. Like, follow them. The Wire, Coach. I know you want to watch The Wire, but Lester Freeman, he's a detective on that show, has a great line. And he says, if you follow drugs, you find drug addicts and drug dealers.
Right.
But if you follow the money, you don't know where you're going to go. And,
no,
and that's the thing.
The Greeks is what you find.
You find the Greeks, yes. That's where you find the Greeks. But Henry, but of course, I'm not even Greek. Little inside Wire joke for those of you who see The
Wire. I'm watching that after the Watchmen.
You got a lot of, I hope you have time, David. Like, you got a lot of work ahead.
Oh, I've got years. We're going to be stuck indoors. My wife and I just know we're not going out for a long damn time. So we're starting to track series that we can watch. Well, I won't be watching stuff when the NBA season starts. I'm looking forward to, well, if it starts, because there'll be games 12:30 till 10 o'clock every night.
Yeah, that's what they're going to do, right? All day games, it seems like. I have
pretty much.
Okay, at least in the beginning.
Yeah.
Hey, one little note. Everything is, terrible, but Carmelo Anthony, if you continue watching that little video, and I recommend it, he's a very thoughtful guy.
Very much so.
He talked about. I'll read you a couple of quotes. I love to see the guys out there on the front line doing it in a respectable way, but also those guys having opportunity to have their voices heard. I will say Adam Silver gives us a great platform. And then he takes, let's go attack some of the laws, the local laws. Let's attack the educational system. I just thought that was a little, he didn't have to bring up Adam Silver. And we don't know. Adam Silver's been silent on all of the Black Lives Matter topics, basically. And I thought that was a meaning. I don't know what the conversations are behind the scenes, but that's, I went ding, ding, ding. Oh, good. I'm glad Carmelo feels good about this. He's contrasting clearly with the NFL here, right? Like
exactly right.
Like
he's not alone in that, right? He's not alone, and I think they feel like they have a partner. Isn't that really, Henry, our expert on ownership? The interesting dichotomy, the duality of Adam is he's got to deal with these 30 billionaires and all those nightmares, and yet he's got to have a partnership with the players, or at least he thinks he does, and they like him. And those guys are at odds. Players and owners are at odds so much.
Yeah. I mean, Adam's nobody's perfect, right? Like he's very much a product. Like, before he was in the NBA, he was at the law firm these same rich people use, right? Like, he's multi-generation with the rich guys, right?
Yeah.
Like he fits right in there. But yeah, he's in kicking Donald Sterling out of the league and in modernizing how Stern related to play and talked about players. Like he's definitely built much of the bridge. I don't know if all of the bridge is there.
Well, he's by nature a consensus builder, right? Like that's how Adam likes to operate. Whereas David was much more of a "what's my way or the highway" kind of guy. Adam would rather you agree and let's all come along together. I do think what helps him obviously is that the league is smaller, right? So having a relationship with the most important and 450 guys is a little bit easier than having a relationship with 1,500, 2,000, whatever the NFL situation is, right? And then a little bit of a generational thing. Mostly old money in the NFL, though there is old money in the NBA too. It's a little bit newer in the NBA, but as Henry would say, billionaires are billionaires, right, Henry?
Yeah, I guess I would say that. Sure. Yeah.
2
All
minutes.
right, what else? We're almost out of time. Any last?
No, I have 2 minutes. Is there any way the NFL allows more than half the stadium's fans in outdoors?
They might. Here's what I think they're going to do first. They're going to do the whole tailgating thing. Come to the parking lot and be outside. We'll put it up on the big screen, whatever. And then by like week 4, all right, quarter of you get in. And by the time the season ends, I see just about every come in at your own risk, and they will. That's what I think.
I guess it depends on what the law says, right? Like who's getting sued if someone gets sick there.
Well, that you saw Trump's making people sign a waiver to go to his rally in Tulsa.
His job is to take care of you. It's his job to take care of you.
Right.
And he wants you to sign a waiver saying that he won't take care of you.
When he said I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and
about to
have
happen.
all the support, what he really was saying is I could shoot my supporters and they will still support me.
And they will.
They're willing to die for him. And the NFL has a lot of fans that I think are fans of his.
I think honestly, like we already have precedent for how leagues see like evidence-based risk, right? So in the NFL, it's the concussion story, right? Like if you thought a whole bunch of people were going to get hurt, would you shut it down? The answer is no, right? Like same in the NBA, like the schedule is demonstrably like the lack of sleep leading to devastating injuries.
Yep.
And they threw up their hands. They're like, we can't do anything about it. We can't make that big of a change. Like that's a model of the decision-making realities, right? So that's where like I roll my eyes a little at like Adam being player focused. It's like, well, the policy really matters. And the policy has barely ever changed on anything ever. Like he kicked out Donald Sterling, but everything else is the same. So,
True.
Anyway, there you go. We're out of time.
TrueHoop.
Yeah, bring it in. We'll see you next week. Thank you. Thank you, Jarod.
Be
Thank
safe,
you.
Have a good weekend, guys. Take care.
Thank you.